to Jadu Lifestyles podcast where you can have a life and live it too. Our intent here is to allow or to give business owners different perspectives that they can actually embrace their fears, they can do something about it, and then they can explore some of their skills and talents so that they can really live life the way they want it. Today, our guest we have is Marlo Rutz. She has been on. We had part one last week, and now we're going to have part two with Marlo. So, Marlo, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Toddy. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I've loved talking with you, and it's good to be talking to you again.
Yes, thank you for being here with us. And now we want to explore a little bit more. You said on episode one that you were going to tell me a story, so I'm ready for the story.
Oh, yeah. There was a couple that I was referring to. One was Sleeping Beauty, and the other was the Spice Rack. So as I was telling you in the last episode, I spent many years in television and pharmaceutical, left that, and David and I met, blended our families. And then I decided, I was going to be a stay-at-home mom. We had two babies back to back. So I was telling you in the first episode that God kept putting this nudging on my heart to encourage women and to make them laugh. And I was like, okay, what do you, I don't know, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. So I ignored that calling. I pushed it off, which is where the second story in a minute comes in, the Spice Rack. But I just kept ignoring it. And then I found that I was meeting with women one-on-one anyway. And I was, we would just work through a lot of adversity. And I had an organic affinity for women, and then to help them with these the things that they were going through, the adversity. So I remember a woman said to me, Marlo, you're really good at this. You should find a structured way of doing this for women. So I said, okay, God, I surrender. Please show me, if this is what you want me to do, I surrender. Just show me how. Show me what to say, okay? So you know how we may pray one day, and the answer doesn't, it's not like a vending machine. The answer doesn't pop out. So a long while after that, and I often say, Toddy, that God speaks to me in so many different ways, but he often uses my little girl, Kailani, as little God sprinkles. He uses all my kids, but this story is about Kailani. So one day I was sitting on our bedroom floor. I was folding my, millionth load of laundry, because that's what mamas do. And our little girl, Kailani, came running in our room. She did a backward somersault on our bed. She popped up, struck the landing, and out of the mouths of babes, she said, Mommy, I want to write a story. And I want to write a story called Sleeping Beauty. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to break it to her. Okay, but the copyright laws alone are going to, they're going to get her. And I said, honey, have we heard that story before? And she said, no, Mommy, not the regular Sleeping Beauty. She said, I want to write a story about a gal who has all of this beauty on the inside of her, Mommy. But in my story, the girl's beauty on the inside is what is asleep. I'm like, I say, what? I dropped whatever I was folding, and I knew that was a God sprinkle. That was the answer that I had been praying for. What do you want me to say to women, and how do you want me to say it? And I have been going full force since that moment. I went to Starbucks the next day and wrote my first talk. God just downloaded to me. It's called Wake Up. And that story is it's the foundation story of everything I do. It's actually printed on the back of my business card. That's how important it is, because I take it as an honor, and I work very, very hard at what I do and helping women awaken that inner beauty inside of them, which usually it shows up in their peace, the peace that they emit, the peace that they feel. If they're not feeling peaceful, if there's a lack there with peace, it shows up in whether they feel beautiful and whether they feel peaceful. So that is how it all began with that story of Sleeping Beauty.
I had my epiphany. Interestingly, it was a marriage seminar that I went to after I got separated from my ex-husband, and there was a beauty contest or something like that. Not truly beauty contest, but they have these women, and it was like a fashion show. And all of a sudden, the thought hit me that every woman has some beauty in themselves. And what I found was that I was afraid to tell a woman she was beautiful, because where did that leave me? because somewhere in my mind I was not beautiful. I wasn't. I guess I was always comparing myself with other women, and I have very unique. Like I'm a dwarf. I have dwarfism. So when you compare yourself to somebody who's 5'9" and you're a dwarf or a smidget or a midget or whatever you are, it doesn't compare. But in my head, that that thought was there. So it's really interesting to
Mm-hmm.
after I got that revelation that every woman has their own beauty. They
Oh,
have uniqueness that's in them. It actually made a difference in my mind and in my head.
you are, first of all, so incredibly beautiful. And what you just said is so powerful because, when I'm doing market research, because I like to make sure that the messages that I put out are hitting straight into the heart of what a woman needs and feels. She may not even know she needs it. I, when I do market research, I'm looking for the pain points of what women are going through. And what you just said is one of the major, I think I hear it with most women that I work with, is a comparison. And it can be so deadly to our spirit. And it will, where there's a divineness in God, of course, there's the exact opposite, working very hard in our lives, which is the enemy that wants to steal, kill, and destroy our gifts, our talents. And that is one of the number one ways to get there, is to attack their worth, their beauty. And part of my wake up talk that I was just talking about, part of that is I'm talking about kindness. Of course, it's great to be kind to other people, but we have to start by being kind to ourselves. I just listened to an incredible, my girlfriends, I just want to take a side step because I want to refer women to this. Two of my girlfriends, one of my girlfriends and her husband owns a place called Barn 45 here in Michigan. And my other girlfriend is their director, and they do it every morning. So if the listeners want to find this on Facebook, it's called Barn 45. It's a huge recommend. So today they were talking about 2 Timothy, and that's exactly what they were getting to the heart of, is comparison. That God wants to trust us with the small things. He wants to see that we are going to do what He's called us to do, audience of one, but to trust that beauty that He's put inside of us, because we are all made in His image. And that's what the wake-up call was for me, Toddy, was to realize if I'm putting myself down on how I look or feel some days, I'm putting down the image of God. And that freed me.
If somebody doesn't know what their purpose is, that's something that you guide them through.
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely do. And a lot of times, like that topic with purpose is the same for anything else I help women with. They have the answer. It's my job to facilitate the process to get them to the answer. Because I couldn't possibly know their innate God called purpose. I mean, sometimes we can mine it out, and I've had times where I'm talking to a woman and I'll say, do you hear yourself? Do you hear what you're really good at? And you're just like overlooking it completely. Possibly, like entertain the idea that you might be overlooking that, and it has to be the desire of their heart too. But then we look at, is it the desire of their heart? And maybe it is. Maybe their fear base is telling them, no, it's not the desire of your heart. So I help them with the outskirts of that question. They've got the answer directly inside of them.
What about trauma? Have you encountered women with trauma, whether it's not just self-inflicted, but mostly somebody else telling them they're not good enough, or maybe physical situation, domestic violence, that kind of.
Well,
do you work with women?
Mm-hmm. So that's a twofold question. One, the first part of that answer is I don't specialize in actual trauma. I recommend if somebody is actually going through, like they're going through it then, or they're in a domestic violence situation, that is not my role. I can refer them to other people. But then the second part of that is I absolutely work with women with the residual effect of hangover, or that was just use the word hangover, residual effect of trauma showing up as like a hangover effect with the trauma that's in their life. And often trauma shows up on the lowest rung of like an empowerment scale, if you will. Like if you picture a ladder, the lowest rung of that ladder is shame. And so many women experience shame. So yes, I definitely help women work through their mindset. I help them work through the truths that have been the residual effect of that trauma. I will tell you this, and I will boldly speak this out loud. I had a hard time sharing this, but a lot of the reason I know what I'm doing, not only the many years of training to become certified as a master empowerment coach, but more importantly to me is what I've lived through. I have lived through anxiety. And I want women to know that if they're ever feeling anxiety and they think, oh, there's something anxious going on, why am I having a panic attack, or why am I feeling anxious? It goes back to what your question was about trauma. We can be living with trapped trauma. And until we get to the root of our story and we get there and get in and excavate maybe the things we've done to ourselves, told ourselves, people have told us, and we've allowed that to seep in as our truth, that's where the paralyzation of being the most peaceful version of ourselves comes in. You just hit, you've hit many chords with me, but that one is, I am so passionate about it because I've lived it. And I've lived my life thinking, oh, I am a Wonder Woman. I grew up with a survival technique that I will take it down. If it's as far as like fear, like I will do my best, but I realized I was repressing so much that it took me down, that trapped trauma. And when I knew I was ready to go and speak to women, and I did, but God took me to the next level, and he said, this is going to show up in your life now, and you gotta understand that there is still some trapped trauma in there. And I had to do the work to go to the next level, because I wanted to show up in the best way, the most peaceful way, joy-filled life that like you said, one of your missions with your podcast is to help women help people live the life that they want.
So now I have a hard question.
Uh-huh.
That question is, when did you know that you were the expert?
I think I had levels of feeling the expertise along the way. But for me, I wasn't the one to define that. God was the one to define that. And he put it in my heart that I had more work to do. But I think that we're always in a state of growing. And I definitely am an expert at these things because of my road. But I think it was when I took a look at my story that I realized I'm an expert in it. And, but again, I use expert also lightly because we always have growth to do. But it was, one of the stories I tell in one of my keynotes is I say to the women, when I first welcome them, how are you? I bet you're saying you're fine. And I talk about how all women say that they're fine, because that's what I would always do. Because, on my website, when you read my About Me page, I say that I became an addict in third grade, and it was an addict of, guilt and blame, and I became a people pleaser. So when I realized how much people pleasing I was doing, trying to get people to like me, but then I found a counter to that, that's one of the ways I knew that I had become an expert. But I also show a picture in my keynote, and I show a picture of our family, and just a beautiful picture of our family. I say, look at that woman in the middle, in the center there. She looks like she's, quote unquote, fine, right? Well,